Get out of our new home. Why? This was totally different from our previous conversations. As I asked with confusion, my husband uttered more words that surprised and hurt me. What are you playing dumb for? You're the one at fault, right? I want to cherish my family. It's because you've been harassing Mom and my sister-in-law, Anne, isn't it? I didn't do anything like that. I just stared at my furiously angry husband in disbelief. I'm Darlene, currently 29 years old. I have a husband named Carlisle, who is 6 years older than me. I've always been good at studying, and I put my natural serious to good use in planning my way through college and job hunting. Thanks to that, I work at a major pharmaceutical company. I met Carlisle through a friend's introduction. Her husband worked at the same place as Carlisle, and that's how I was introduced. At that time, I was completely immersed in my work, putting love on the back burner. I found work more enjoyable than studying, and felt a sense of fulfillment from it. Worried about my distance from marriage, my friend was concerned. Unlike the shy me, Carlisle was bright and sociable. Thinking we could complement each other well, we decided to get married. When it came to living together, both Carlisle and I, having above-average incomes, decided to keep our finances separate except for shared expenses. Both the wedding and our married life started off smoothly, but there was one problem. It was my relationship with my mother-in-law, Iris. To put it bluntly, Iris disliked me. A woman working so much is indecent. I can't believe you keep separate finances as a married couple. She would constantly nag and complain about my job or our marriage, even about where we lived or the wedding. Isn't that a bit too luxurious? Things were different in my time. She would find reasons to berate me, making my already busy life even more exhausting. With no choice but to listen silently, consulting with my husband Carlisle only. I think Mom's just lonely, since Dad's gone, and she's living alone now. Try to bear with it and keep her company. Despite the constant nagging and complaints in person or over the phone, Iris never called me over or came to our place uninvited, so I continued to endure. Despite these issues, our married life was peaceful. Then we began planning to buy our own home. We had discussed buying a house before marriage, deciding to do so before having children. The idea of living with Iris came up briefly, but I think Mom would probably refuse to live with us, Carlisle said, so we decided not to live with the difficult Iris. Meanwhile, I was worried about my own parents. Carlisle, if it's okay to live separately from Iris, can my parents live with us? My mom isn't very strong, and Dad's getting old, so I'm worried. It would be great if they could live with us so I can help them anytime. When I asked, Carlisle agreed. I think that's a good idea. We were planning to buy a bigger house anyway. Invite them over when the house is ready. I was a bit concerned about his distracted manner, but happy he agreed without further questions. My parents were thrilled when I told them about the living arrangement. Just in case, my husband informed Iris that my parents would be living with us in the new home. Immediately after, Iris contacted me. You're really selfish, deciding to live with your parents without consulting me. I'm sorry, we did consider living with you. That's enough. I refuse to live with a daughter-in-law like you. Though her words hurt, being refused was not an issue since we never intended to live together. While proceeding with the real estate agent, we lived in an apartment. One day, an unexpected visitor came to see our apartment. It was Anne. She had left her home due to her husband's infidelity and returned to her in-laws. I heard from Carlisle. I quit my job when I got divorced. I don't feel like working yet, but I need money to live. It seemed she came to borrow money after consulting Carlisle. When I went to call Carlisle, he came to the living room reluctantly. I understand, but I don't have any cash on hand right now. I was surprised and inadvertently raised my voice. Despite earning above average, the fact that he had no cash on hand seemed unnatural. I try not to carry cash around, Carlisle said, trying to evade the issue. But Anne, claiming she was in trouble, wouldn't leave easily. Mom's savings are low. And I can't even pay this month's rent. Can't you help out somehow? Carlisle glanced at me. I felt a momentary displeasure, but reluctantly decided to give her the money myself. Afterward, Anne checked the number of bills, left with a simple thank you, and went home right away. Later, I tried to talk to Carlisle about Anne and Iris's living situation, and when they would repay the money I had fronted. However, well, things are tough, aren't they? I'll pay back the money soon. We're living together after all. No need to rush. He responded too irresponsibly. As days passed with unease, Anne began to come by more frequently to borrow money. And unlike at first, she started demanding money directly from me, not through Carlisle. Perhaps it was a mistake to have given her money the first time. Maybe she got too comfortable with the arrangement. It was difficult to keep giving money as our own household budget was tight. Yet when I politely refused, Anne would fly into a rage and start shouting, "You two can't spare $1,000, even when you're living together? I'm unemployed and struggling here. Aren't I part of the family too? It wouldn't hurt you to help out a little." Even so, I apologized and insisted it was difficult asking her to leave for now. Then she quickly returned, this time with Iris. "You're being too selfish. Carlisle's sister is your sister too. It's cruel to ignore a family struggling to make ends meet." "That's right. Do you want us to starve to death? Maybe we shouldn't have allowed this marriage. It's too pitiful for us." They accused, barging into the house and rummaging through drawers. "This is where you keep the money, right?" "Please wait. This is troubling," I protested, but they took the envelope of living expenses I had stored without listening. If such incidents continued, it would ruin our lives. I watched them leave in dismay, feeling a chill of fear. That night, even when I shared my fears and anxiety with Carlisle, "It's tough for them, so it can't be helped," he dismissively said. "You're my wife, right? Just like Mom says, we're family. Just handle it. Well, I'm too tired to deal with this," he said before going to sleep alone. Carlisle worked at an advertising agency, and indeed he seemed busy lately. With nightly overtime, weekend work, and frequent business trips, he might not have had the mental space to deal. However, it was troubling that he wouldn't listen to me when I was struggling with family issues. With our new home being built, and family relations like this, I wondered if we could really manage well in the future. I already harbored significant anxiety about our long-term marriage. Moreover, Carlisle's presence at home became scarce, not just because of work, and our conversations dwindled. An inexplicable suspicion grew in my heart. Sleepless nights continued for a while. To avoid further theft, I made sure not to meet Anne and Iris, avoiding them on days they might visit and dodging phone and email conversations. Thanks to these efforts, I managed not to give them any more money. Despite receiving daily emails filled with sarcasm and insults, by intentionally staying away, I managed to avoid direct encounters and financial demands. The home construction progressed smoothly, and a few months later, the house was completely as planned, with both floors equipped with bathrooms and toilets. Considering a 2-generation living setup and a spacious, bright kitchen, the house was perfect for household chores. We planned to call my parents over after settling in, but just when we were ready to invite my parents, Carlisle dropped a shocking statement. "I've decided to live here with my family, so can you not call your parents? And you should leave too." Why? That was completely different from our previous discussions. As I asked in astonishment, my husband uttered more words that surprised and hurt me. "Playing dumb now, are we? You're the one at fault, aren't you?" I stared at my furious husband, completely dumbfounded. "I don't know what you're talking about. I need you to explain it to me properly." "You have been harassing Mom and Anne, despite them coming over. You chase them away. Don't answer their calls, ignore their emails." Of course, I have no recollection of ever harassing anyone. It seems like Carlisle is misunderstanding something. "I'm sorry if it seems that way, but we can't afford to give away more money." "It's just a little help. Isn't money money? Can't you help a bit? Being asked for $1,000 every time? We have a mortgage to think about. We can't do this. My family is your family too. Don't you even want to help your own family? Why? Now you sound just like Iris and the rest. Sadness overflowed, and I couldn't help but tear up. Yet, without noticing my state, Carlisle slammed the table with a frown. You're pushing them too far. Both mom and sister are hurt. They've become mentally fragile because of you. I never thought you could be such a terrible person. Wait, I just wanted to protect our household finances. If we keep giving them money, it'll affect our future. I'm sorry about Anne and Iris, but I think that's their problem. We can't keep meeting their unreasonable demands. I will protect my mother and sister. That's why I'm bringing them here to live with us. You've been pressuring my precious family, and you don't even understand how busy I am with work. I don't want to see your face anymore. Get out now. Carlisle yelled at me with exaggerated anger. I was taken aback for a while. You're the wife of this household. Shouldn't you be more devoted to me, this house, and my family? You're still working as much as before. Do you want your own money that badly? There was no point in getting married. Being bombarded with complaints one after another was exhausting. Indeed, the days without conversation had already broken the relationship between Carlisle and me. Furthermore, I've been refusing money requests from Iris and Anne. It's natural for the two who resent me to take his side. They probably want to take over our new home for themselves. And Carlisle, annoyed by me over work and personal issues, believed their claims and plotted to kick me out. It hurts to say it, doesn't it? He was my husband, whom I once loved. It's sad, painful, and incredibly frustrating to see our relationship fall apart like this. But on the other hand, I had been considering leaving Carlisle. I was fed up with him. He wouldn't listen or even look at me when he occasionally came home. And there were other reasons. As evidence, I had secretly prepared divorce papers. It's a shame our home, built with so much thought, has come to this. But if you insist I have no choice, I'll leave the house to you and your family. But in exchange, I have something to say. I refuse to just leave and be separated. I want a divorce. Please sign these divorce papers. When I placed the brand new divorce papers on the table, Carlisle snorted in disbelief. Quite prepared, aren't you? What does this mean? I've reached my limit with our life together. If you want to kick me out, the feeling is mutual. Let's talk about divorcing now. This was unexpected for me, so make sure nothing like this happens again. I'll be recording our conversation from here on. Carlisle reluctantly agreed, his face twisted with dissatisfaction. That night, we settled the discussions related to our divorce. Since we kept our finances separate, there was no distribution of property. The house was originally bought under Carlisle's name, so he would continue paying the mortgage. After everything was settled, Carlisle signed the divorce papers. I quickly packed my bags, took the divorce papers, and left the house. On the doorstep, I suddenly asked Carlisle something that concerned me. Hey, about what we decided earlier. You're going to be unemployed soon, right? Can you really afford the mortgage? I expected him to get angry or make excuses. But Carlisle avoided my gaze and gave a foolish response. What are you talking about? His attempt to feign ignorance only deepened my disillusionment. Yes, I knew. Carlisle was about to be fired from the advertising agency where he worked. Despite his predicament, he feigned ignorance. His feigned ignorance made me go beyond anger to sheer disbelief. Dealing with his family became unbearable. But to me, he's already someone else. No more involvement. Let him do as he pleases. After all, I've already looked into his actions and taken steps ahead of time. Then I took my belongings and went back to my parents' house to start a new life. My parents were sad about my divorce, but accepted me warmly when I expressed my desire to support Dad and Mom. A calm life of commuting to work from my parents' house began. Then something happened. One day after work, I checked my phone and saw a ton of missed calls from Carlisle. Now my ex-husband, almost a stranger. What could he possibly want? but I had an idea. I didn't plan to call back, but since he called again when I was home, I reluctantly answered. Darlene, don't you ignore my calls. I was at work, couldn't help it, so what do you want? I can't pay the mortgage. If this continues, I'll lose the house. Is that so? And? I responded indifferently, though I thought to myself, serves you right. That's what I said. Are you okay being unemployed? The bank contacted me. Mom and sister are ignoring it. I was deceived by them. His story was falling apart. I was fed up and had no words to return. Carlisle was a manager at an advertising agency, and I knew there were issues with his work attitude. His inappropriate behavior towards a female employee was problematic. He inquired persistently about her personal life and relationships, and made excessive physical contact in secret. Unable to bear it, the woman consulted her superiors. The issue spread quickly, and he was repeatedly warned. Even though we were divorced, it was truly embarrassing as his ex-wife. A friend who introduced Carlisle to me, and who works at the same company, knew about this and had advised him. Didn't he feel the risk of getting caught by me? Yet, he couldn't stop his behavior. Meanwhile, the company was promoting a better work environment for women, and Carlisle's actions were seriously questioned. He thought he was hiding it, but it seems he wasn't careful enough. Eventually, after several meetings, and due to his egregious behavior, he was fired. I heard about this process from a friend. The day after we separated, Carlisle was officially notified of his dismissal. On the day we decided on divorce, he gave a foolish response when mentioned about being unemployed, probably unable to accept the reality of his firing, and wanted to brush it off. I wouldn't sympathize, but honestly, I felt pity for him. There's nothing I can do about that. We're divorced now. Your mortgage is your problem. Even if we're divorced, you're still my ex-wife. What's with that attitude? I don't want to hear it from someone who's been fired. You think I didn't know? So you knew. I thought you said something weird at that time. Yes, I heard about it, so that's that. There was no point in continuing the conversation with Carlisle. I wanted to end the call quickly, but from the other end, he kept holding on. Wait, I want to cancel the divorce. Let's remarry. No way. Why should I remarry you after everything, even losing the house? Mom and sister are just selfish. I'll kick them out. And Darlene, you're misunderstanding something. Misunderstanding what? You wouldn't even listen. You weren't around, and then I found out you were cheating too. I could never marry someone like that again. That's not true. It's a misunderstanding. How could it be a misunderstanding? Didn't the lawyer tell you? I was the one who sent the lawyer to Carlisle. The investigation I had been conducting was about this. When Carlisle started working late and going on business trips more frequently, becoming distant from the family, I felt lonely and suspicious of his private life, so I secretly hired a detective. The results were damning. While I was being accused of harassment, he was out on late-night dates and trips with another woman. While I was troubled and hurt over his family, he was happily spending time with another woman. When I found out, the realization hit me, and I spent the whole night crying out of anger and helplessness. The unbearable relationship led me to bring up divorce. Right before the divorce, I consulted a lawyer with some evidence. I was claiming alimony for his infidelity. That's a setup, obviously. You just want the house back, right? What else are you dissatisfied with? Now you say that. The evidence I left with the lawyer clearly shows your infidelity. I'm telling you, it's not. Should I show more evidence then? There are more proofs of your cheating besides what I gave to the lawyer. Why won't you believe me? Because it's the truth. I couldn't help raising my voice, utterly sick of my ex-husband's foolish claims of innocence. Look, I really can't afford the house loan, and I'm in trouble. Marry me again and come back home. No way. Please, you're still working, right? I admit the misunderstanding. You weren't bullying Mom and Aunt. What? Bringing that up now. After all his complaining about me continuing to work and falsely accusing me of attacking Iris and Anne, he dares to say this now. Divorced and unemployed, Anne must have been asking for money. When you refused to protect our finances, even Mom joined in blaming you. Yes, but realizing it now is too late. I wanted you to understand back then. Who was enjoying time with his affair while I suffered because of those two? My bad. I admit it. Isn't that enough? Unfortunately, I can no longer trust you. My disgust for my ex-husband trying to worm his way back only grew. I was desperate to end the call. Please, I can't pay the loan without you. So you want to get back together for the money? Unbelievable. And you know what? It's not just the affair. I know why you were fired. Harassing a girl at work? And you didn't stop, even after warnings from your boss? I'm so disappointed in you. That's a misunderstanding. I would never do such a thing. That's why, even without you saying anything about the house, with all that's happened, I would have suggested divorce just the same. After saying that, Carlisle finally fell silent. He must be feeling frustrated, finding no words to say. I ended the call right there and blocked him. Since then, I've been living with my beloved parents, working hard as usual. There were days when Carlisle's affair and the issues with Iris and Anne made it hard to focus on work. But I love my job and continue to excel and achieve. I was even recognized and promoted by my boss. I heard about Carlisle's subsequent life through Dad. Apparently, unable to stay unemployed, he tried to find a new job, but his dismissal from the previous job hindered his efforts, and he couldn't get hired anywhere. Now he's living on a low-wage part-time job, barely making ends meet. Without the ability to pay for a single-family home loan, Iris and Anne also had to start working part-time. Their plan to take over the house for free completely fell apart, and they must be tasting bitterness now. And Carlisle's savings had significantly decreased. He had apparently spent a lot on his affair partner. On top of the house loan, there's also the alimony payment to me. Furthermore, he's being sued by the female employee he harassed, and paying her compensation drained his already scant savings. Now struggling to keep the house without letting it go, the three of them must be working frantically on minimum wage. I can almost see them exhausted from being overworked. And particularly Anne, who was desperate to borrow money from me, had told me in the past about being divorced due to her husband's affair, but it turned out she was the one who had the affair, which led to her divorce when it was discovered. She had to pay alimony to her husband, resulting in her debt. She probably intended to use the money taken from me to cover that repayment. Honestly, what a mess with these siblings. I regret getting involved with such a foolish family, but am glad I divorced and cut ties quickly. Several years later, this will finalize the contract. I thanked the real estate agent, planning my second home with my parents. A dream home more comfortable than the previous one, for us to live together. Thank you. This house is much nicer than the previous one. I'm glad we discussed this together. It's unfortunate about the marriage. But it's okay. I've forgotten about that fool. Mom, Dad, you're what's most important to me. Hearing me say this, my parents smiled happily. I'm starting a peaceful and happy life with my supportive parents. I'm very much looking forward to our new home being built.